You're live in the CNN newsroom. So great to have you here. I'm Ana Cabrera in New York, and tonight the NFL is bracing for possible protests at its games tomorrow after President Trump called out players who kneel during the national anthem. Listen.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
The reaction to that comment has been pouring in all day from Buffalo Bills star LaShawn McCoy. It's really sad, man. Our president is a expletive. From Max Garcia of the Broncos. What an emphatic response. Where was this passion in response to Charlottesville? And from the NFL commissioner himself, Roger Goodell. Divisive comments like these demonstrate an unfortunate lack of respect for the NFL, our great game, and all of our players, and a failure to understand the overwhelming force for good our clubs and players represent in our communities. Now, just a short time ago, Goodell's statement prompted a direct response from the president on Twitter. Roger Goodell of NFL just put out a statement, he writes, trying to justify the total disrespect certain players show to our country. Tell them to stand. President also tweeting, if a player wants the privilege of making millions of dollars in the NFL or other leagues, he or she should not be allowed to disrespect our great American flag or country and should stand for the national anthem. If not, you're fired. Find something else to do. Joining me now to discuss, CNN senior political analyst and senior editor for The Atlantic, Ron Brownstein, CNN political commentator and host of BET News, Mark Lamont Hill, and former Georgia congressman and former senior advisor to the Trump campaign, Jack Kingston, is back with us. Congressman, with everything the president has going on, I want to draw your attention to a tweet President Trump, then Citizen Trump, sent back in 2013 about President Obama. Quote, President should not be telling the Washington Redskins to change their name. Our country has far bigger problems. Focus on them, not nonsense. Shouldn't he be taking his own advice?
Anna, I think that's fair criticism, but I think at the same hand, knowing the president as I do, that he can fire on all kinds of different cylinders, and he can talk about big issues and small issues. And I would say this is not a small issue to the average American, particularly the ones who are paying big money to go see a game, and a game where elite athletes are paid to kick, pass, and punt, and instead they get their political views. And most of the people who are NFL fans don't want to hear their political views. They just want to see a good game.
Mark, to Jack's point, I have people tweeting at me at Ana Cabrera if you want to weigh in. And I'm reading this during the breaks. And here's one. Somebody writes, I want to ask you, of course, they can protest. They should not go to work and go protest instead. What if a TV anchor wants to protest on the air? Is that a fair point?
No, it's not a fair point. If a TV anchor were asked to pledge allegiance every day, then a TV anchor would have a right to say, hey, I don't want to do that. Jack, the problem with Jack's argument is that he presumes that politics only starts at the protest. It's a political statement to pledge allegiance to the flag. It's a political statement to stand for the singing of the national anthem. The fact is, Colin Kaepernick and me and many other people simply have different politics. It's not neutral to pledge allegiance or sing the national anthem. It's an affirmation of the American empire. And he's saying, I don't want to do that under the current conditions. So you can't say that the people who stand are right and the people who don't stand are wrong if you advocate for free speech.
Well, yeah, but here's the fact, is the demographic is against it. The people who struggle to get that $50 together to go to the game, they'll never make $14 million a year. That is what Colin Kaepernick was making when he was protesting, making that kind of money, and yet the country isn't good enough for him to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. That is offensive to the demographic of the NFL, and that's why you see games like the 49ers-Rams opening game when half the seats were empty. Maybe there's a lesson there for the NFL that they, as a business, should pay attention to.
Go ahead, Ron. Go ahead.
I mean, saying this is about the national anthem is like saying Charlottesville was fundamentally about a statue of Robert E. Lee. It's simply the venue in which the underlying issue is being fought out. And from the point of view of the president and the kind of language he has used literally from the first day when he came down the escalator in Trump Tower and talked about Mexicans who are rapists and criminals, it is not a coincidence that he is attacking a series of prominent African American athletes. I mean, this is a continuation of what we saw with David Duke, what we saw with Charlottesville, what we've seen in his comments about Black Lives Matter. He has appealed from the beginning to the elements of white America that are most uneasy about racial and demographic change. And this is, and hold on, Jack. Let me finish. Let me finish. The fact is the president has drawn.
Jack, let him finish.
Jack, let me finish. From the beginning, the president has drawn his most support from the voters who are most uneasy about those changes. And I think, he is putting the Republican Party in a moment of significant choice because I think he sees these fights as benefiting him, as encouraging, in effect, more white voters to see themselves as part of an aggrieved group, an aggrieved shrinking majority that he is standing up for. But the fact is that the country is inexorably diversifying. And the millennial generation, which is the most diverse generation in American history, is becoming the largest generation in the electorate in 2018. The generation behind them is even more diverse, and Republicans have to consider the implications of his stamp on the party for what their long-term competitiveness will be over the next decade and beyond.
Jack, go ahead.
Ron, so when he takes on Hollywood, which is predominantly white, both in management and in acting, when he takes on Hollywood, is he a racist? How does that fit in your goal? See, Ron, this is what the problem is from my standpoint. Is that those who do not like Trump want to paint the rest of us as simply bigots, racists, and all kinds of bad names. That's just not true. There is a cultural war going on here, and it is the fact that people who are making a tremendous amount of money feel like they have a different standard than the rest of us. The Emmys last week were probably the best recruitment party for the Republicans that we've ever had. I mean, the Emmys were just ridiculous. Having rich people who live in walled houses, by the way, those are for open borders, yet every single one of them has a wall around his or her house or palace. I don't want to call it a house. It's a mansion. And then they lecture middle-class America on how we should behave. That's what this is about, Ron. It's a culture war. If you enter that race, you're missing it.
This is a phenomenally bizarre argument. I mean, the first thing is you keep mentioning how much money people make. The amount of money you make doesn't determine whether or not you can exercise a particular political view. By that logic, Donald Trump has infinitely more money than Colin Kaepernick, so he should be the last person tweeting about Colin Kaepernick's political vision. But the truth is, Colin Kaepernick's position is even more principled because he's not the primary person getting shot by police. He's not the primary person being followed in the store. He has access and privilege, and despite that, he's risking the most for people who don't have those things. NFL owners own teams. They don't own players. And just because you pay someone a lot of money doesn't mean that they don't have a right to exercise their free speech. And you say, finally, you say that the average. You say, hold on, just one more thing. You say that you say that these fans don't want to hear Colin Kaepernick's perspective. There are many fans who agree with Colin Kaepernick. There are many veterans who agree with Colin Kaepernick. And did you consider that maybe half the stands were empty for the 49ers game because Colin Kaepernick, who's an actually quality quarterback, wasn't there? You're assuming it's for the opposite reason. There's no reason to say that.
Mark, hold on, guys. I want to play what LeBron James is saying in reaction to the president's comments, and then we'll talk on the backside.
Yeah.
You look at him kind of asking, the NFL owners to get rid of players off the field because they're, exercising their rights, and that's not right. And then, when I wake up, I see that, a colleague of mine has been uninvited of something that he said he didn't even want to go to in the first place, to the White House. That's just something I can't stand for, man.
So just to catch everybody up there at the end, LeBron was referencing Trump lashing out at Steph Curry of the Warriors after he had said he didn't want to go to the White House. But bottom line here, Jack, who is the president appealing to by taking on these wildly popular sports figures?
I think what the president is saying is we've got a great country, and isn't it a shame that the people who are really enjoying the best fruits and benefits of it don't want to stand for the national anthem, which means a heck of a lot to the people out there and the fans. I had the honor of representing
why don't they want to stand for the national anthem is the question, and a lot of people are saying that is the point, and the president is going after that. I mean, Colin Kaepernick came out and said the reason he wasn't standing really had nothing to do directly, he said, with President Trump. I mean, let me just read you what he said at the time when he decided to make that statement. He said this. He said, "I'm not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color."
Anna, can I jump in?
think that he has the right to do that, but people have the right to quit going to the NFL, and that's what we're seeing in terms of the people who are NFL viewership has dropped. Part of it is this. Rasmussen poll shows that 32% of the NFL fans said this is a factor of them turning away from it. They also have competition from college games. People are tired of paying big money to see NFL players and support the lifestyles. And
I'm glad you bring up money. I'm glad you bring up money, Jack, because a number of NFL owners have given large sums of money to President Trump, to his inaugural committee. You see the names all listed here. Is there a risk, Ron, for President Trump to alienate these wealthy and very influential people?
No, I don't think that. I don't think that's the risk. I think the risk is alienating a broader part of the country. Look, this, as I said, I think you can get wrapped around the axle looking at this solely in the context of the NFL or the NBA any more than you could looking at Charlottesville as statues. This is an inherently fraught moment in the history of the country. We are living through a profound demographic transformation. A majority of our public school students are kids of color. A majority of our under 10 population are kids of color. A majority of the under 18 population by the end of this decade are going to be kids of color. There are, and not everybody is entirely comfortable with that level of change in the country. And it's a moment when you need leadership that is about reminding us of what we have in common. And instead, I think the president has seen it in his interest, literally from day one, to jump up and down on those fault lines. And I think, when you look at the CNN poll out last week, 60% of Americans said they disapprove of the way he's handling race relations. He may view, I think he clearly does view, these kinds of fights as benefiting him because they allow him to kind of posture in a culture war that, Jack Kingston is talking about. But the fact is that the country needs a very different style of leadership to work through a transition, because these are the future workers, the future taxpayers, the future voters. The kids today are kind of tomorrow's economy. And instead, we are really seeing a president who feels it's in his interest to, in effect, mobilize kind of older, white, non-urban America against this kind of emerging America. And that doesn't serve anybody.
Mark,
Ron,
on the issue of NBA,
hey,
hold on, Jack, just a sec. I want to get Mark back in here. On the issue of the NBA champion Steph Curry and that whole situation, I want to play what Curry said that apparently set off Trump. Let's listen.
We don't stand for basically what our president has, the things that he said and the things that he hasn't said in the right times, that we won't stand for it. And by acting and not going, hopefully that will inspire some change when it comes to what we tolerate in this country and what is accepted and what we turn a blind eye to.
And then President Trump tweeted this: going to the White House is considered a great honor for a championship team. Stephen Curry is hesitating, therefore invitation is withdrawn. Just within the last 10 minutes or so, we got a statement now from NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. And let me read that to you. It says, "I was in favor of the team visiting the White House and thought it was a rare opportunity for these players to share their views directly with the president. I am disappointed that will not happen. More importantly, I am proud of our players for taking an active role in their communities and continuing to speak out on critically important issues." Mark, is the president missing an opportunity here?
The president misses many opportunities. The 2 points that I would make: one, salute to the NBA players, not just the Golden State Warriors for resisting the lure of the White House, but for all the other NBA players, from LeBron James to Chris Paul to Kobe Bryant, who stood up in support and solidarity in a way that I would love to see NFL players do tomorrow. I hope every NFL player takes a knee and protests not just Donald Trump, but the broader problem that we're wrestling with, which is much bigger than Donald Trump. But the second piece here is that Donald Trump resents President Obama. He resents Steph Curry. He resents Colin Kaepernick. White supremacy resents free black bodies, free black people. And the fact that they can't control these people, what they say, what they do, what they believe, whether or not they kneel, whether or not they stand, it eats him alive. It's something that he can't control, and it's something that he resents. And that's why the leader...
So, Mark, you're saying that the president's a white supremacist? Is that what you just said? You just said the president is a white supremacist. Did I hear you right? Because you said white supremacists can't control it. Are you saying the president's a white supremacist?
I'm not sure if you think you're cornering me or something. Let me be very clear on national television.
I'm just asking you, is that not what you said?
Let him answer your question, Jack.
Is he a white supremacist or not?
I think you have the impression
I
you're
just
somehow.
want to know, what did you say?
If you stop talking, you'll hear me. What I'm saying very clearly, unequivocally, unapologetically on national television is that Donald J. Trump is a white supremacist. He supports white supremacy. He has white supremacy.
Okay, well, then that's all I needed to know, because I know that the quick thing on the left is to label the president as a white supremacist. And it's just so absurd. I mean, really, he doesn't pick these fights based on skin color. He's picking it based on a belief that standing up for your country is a patriotic thing to do. And I'm going to agree with you that the players have the right not to. But I also think you'll agree with me that the fans have the right to not go to these games because they don't want politics mixed in with their entertainment. Or many of the fans don't. Some dig it. I mean, there's no question.
Every single time at NFL halftime, when we have soldiers and we salute soldiers in wars of aggression, every single time we sing a national anthem, every single time we engage in militaristic talk during a football game, we are engaging in politics. Colin Kaepernick didn't introduce politics into the NFL. That is absurd. It's also a straw man to keep talking about whether or not fans come or go, because the debate isn't about whether fans come or go. It's whether Donald Trump is engaged in actions which are improper. And he didn't just criticize.
The NFL is a business, Mark.
He didn't just criticize Colin Kaepernick.
And that's why they're losing millions of dollars.
Mark, let me ask you this. Mark, let me ask you this, because you just called the president a white supremacist right here on our air, and that's also divisive language, is it not?
No, being white supremacist is divisive. Somehow we've entered this moment where calling racist is seen as a more egregious act than being racist itself. Donald Trump said that Judge Curiel could not be impartial because he was Mexican, speaking to the very nature of reason. He has rejected Muslims and South Asians and Arabs into the country purely on the basis of skin color. He is trying to build a wall that separates Mexicans from America. And one more. And in his
I want to make one point.
He has been sued. Donald Trump has been sued for not renting to black people. On what planet is this not racist?
Mark,
on what planet is this not a white supremacist?
Let me say something, though.
Hold on, Jack. Let me finish, and then you can answer.
And this is my last point. And let's just see, when we talk about language, Colin Kaepernick and these football players who are protesting are called SOBs, sons of bitches, whereas he referred to the people in Charlottesville as very fine people. There is a racialized distinction being made here. Donald Trump, yes, I'm not afraid to say Donald Trump is racist. I'm not afraid to say white supremacist. Do your thing. Go ahead.
Well, Mark, let me say this. I want to get back to the California Golden State Warriors not going to the White House. I had an opportunity to fly with President Obama down to my hometown of Savannah, Georgia. Many of my Republican base voters said, don't do that because it shows that you're endorsing his politics. And I said, no, he's the President of the United States. And on Air Force One, if he gives me a chance, I'm going to be able to talk to him about jobs in our area, the expansion of the Savannah port, and things that are of good for the country. And that's what I think does need to happen. When these sports teams get an invitation like that, I think it would be good for them to say, Mr. President, instead of just the picture and the cameo appearance, we'd really like to have a real meeting and talk to you about some of these issues. And I think by not going, they're missing an opportunity that could be beneficial to everybody.
You both agree on that, guys. We got to leave it there. I'm out of time. I got the wrap. Sorry. Ron Brownstein, Jack Kingston, Mark Lamont Hill. This conversation is not going away. We will have you all back. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Coming up, authorities say a breach is imminent. Puerto Rico facing a new emergency as residents below this dam are told they got to get out of there. We will take you there live to Puerto Rico when we come back.